we're down to basic.
The old man lives in concrete.
The old man lives in concrete.
The old man lives in concrete.
Is that a
It's
title?
my
It's
name.
your
It's my
You
name.
got to be
No
careful.
way.
No, it's my name.
It's my name.
Name it's like fine. that.
It's my
You
name.
could use something like you mean to say title?
Save word.
Yeah, you see.
Just say I.
What if it's not me?
Not me.
You mean if you just made it up?
What if I just made it up?
No one cares.
Okay, it's I.
It's just I
So what's with concrete?
Concrete.
live in the
So
city.
what is concrete? A complaint?
Wouldn't live anywhere else.
So you like cities?
So what?
Wouldn't live anywhere else.
So what's the detail?
Detail.
There are a lot of them.
Name just one.
Detail.
Just one. Sit in a chair.
In a chair?
Who doesn't do that?
There's more.
Look out the window.
Look out.
Who doesn't do
There's
that?
more. Close one eye.
Close just one eye.
This is sure different.
So?
Sit very still.
Very still.
Then
Watch it all of the edge.
Edge.
They line up. Perfect.
What you expect?
Not expect.
the earth is round.
Yes, round.
Maybe they flatten it.
Yeah. Before they start.
Gotta start somewhere.
Everyone. Flatten
They flatten it.
references to
To
what?
flat.
How can you know?
Try it yourself.
You don't know that
So
stuff.
it's something to think about.
You do that all
A
day.
lot.
What do you think about
Friends
them?
of mine.
You ever would.
Little as
Sure.
possible.
What about the friend?
My friend.
I like the secret.
One.
He plays the piece.
How's that secret?
He won't play in our public.
So
He says
nobody
there's
knows.
no reason to. I know a guy right
He is a guy.
Really does.
where he worked. He set it up. Did he get caught?
They could not.
So what does he do
He
now?
tells the story.
Who to?
Whoever listens, no name,
Where does he work?
not the band.
Hard on the
He
resume.
didn't get dubbed either.
Wow.
He's got a
You
secret.
bet. He always brags about.
You know the story.
I heard.
Doesn't use name.
Never name.
Now that's a secret.
You bet.
I'll introduce
No
you.
run. It's sort of boring.
I'll bet.
After you heard do tell.
So what's the secret?
There's now two of it.
One rock band.
The other tells stories.
How long will this go on?
Forever.
I see. They talk to each other
All day.
every day.
Hard to believe.
Got to be.
Who knows about that stuff?
Me.
It's got to really you're into.
And who else knows?
Bet it's an he who
And is
listens.
he married?
Divorce.
She got tired of hearing it.
Can't blame her.
He's got a
Didn't get
case.
dubbed either. Man,
Sometimes it pays.
tell me what secrets of past.
You're not what you look like.
Exactly.
I know a few of those.
Sure.
All of us do.
We just keep secrets.
Never to be unless you tell.
Cross my heart.
Secrets of skill.
Like the piano.
Exactly.
The bang.
Why do we do that?
No, it's for the secret.
Alone.
Secrets are powerful.
Yeah.
It makes you somebody.
Yeah.
All by yourself.
All alone.
Also, it makes you say.
It's heavy to carry
Secret
around.
obsession. You can't just let it go.
Maybe that's not the right
Maybe
word.
not determination.
Maybe.
That might be better.
Let's start at the top.
You mean past lives?
You've got a good one.
Really?
It makes me cry. True story.
I'd like to hear it.
I'll try.
Hope I can tell it right.
Try.
She's the state champion in golf at 15 years old. But she quits playing golf. She says she likes radical people with long hair, and that is incompatible with golf. She compliments me that I am the first person she has known with long hair. She wants to be an artist. She studies ceramics. Her teacher tells me she could be as famous in ceramics as Picasso. She throws bowls that are so big you can hardly lift them. They're beautiful and they're huge. Nobody can believe how strong she is with her arms. But in obvious contradiction to her strength, she is simply a beautiful woman, not large, nor in any noticeable way muscular. She is very feminine, with gorgeous red hair. She is not fragile, but she is mysteriously delicate. Everything she touches or does is with perfect calm and precision. Where does her secret athletic skill come from? Sometime years after we meet, we go to a driving range near town with a couple of men friends who are almost good weekend duffers. The men are trying to hit the ball out of the park. Her stroke is flawless, and the ball goes much farther. She says it's just a matter of putting the body weight in exactly the right place at the right time. Sure. She joins a theater group just for fun and to be around the theater people. She is an extraordinary performer. She has a beautiful voice and a wild and beautiful laugh. Her voice becomes famous because of recordings at one of those parties which happen almost every night. We're dancing. I whisper softly in her ear and proposition her. She pushes me back to arm's length and just laughs. We continue dancing. How can you not love somebody who does that? This story is hard to tell. She has about her the aura of a secret that no one will ever know. Sometimes, in the middle of a confusion of people, she will seem to turn off or turn away. It is embarrassing, I think, to anyone who notices. Then, abruptly, she is back in the present, unchanged. She opens a small store, a boutique. She sells women's clothes that she designs. It is an immediate success. She goes to New York twice a year and buys fabrics. Then she comes back and designs the clothes. She designs from what ideas the fabrics give her. The store starts having regular visits from 4 girls. Perhaps this is politically incorrect to mention now. But where else is the story? The girls are black. Not many black people in this part of town, and this is a raid. Girls come with a man who waits in a car outside. Fancy little boutique in a small college town, no problem. Lots of Detroit kind of talk. Lots of laughing and throwing things around. Lots of go into the dressing room with 3 items and come out with 2. They cause havoc in the store. They leave with a lot of stolen clothes. She doesn't call the police. Nobody likes the police. She speaks to a friend, a formidable and powerful black man, one of the fledgling activists. He starts hanging around the store. When the girls come next time, he speaks to each of them softly, and then he goes out and speaks to the man in the car. They stop coming. She gives the store to her mother. She teaches her mother how to run it. She moves to Canada A lot of her friends are moving to Canada to protest the war in Vietnam or to escape the draft. She is hired by a big corporation in Canada. She goes to various cities to set up boutiques. The boutiques are in malls that the corporation is building. She quits because the job is boring. She has people staying as guests in her loft, more or less all of the time. She has a boyfriend who is the quarterback on the city's football team. Her boyfriend uses cocaine. She decides to go to Colombia to buy cocaine for her boyfriend and for the adventure. I suspect mostly for the adventure. She takes $10,000 on the trip. She meets a man in Colombia who says he can buy her some cocaine. He steals her $10,000. She goes back to Canada. She gets together $50,000 from the football team and goes back to Colombia. She comes back with $50,000 worth of cocaine. She stops in New York to see me on her way back to Canada. She is still beautiful, but somehow stronger and bolder now. The secret is still part of her presence. She holds it tightly within her. The secret is not in any way frightening. It is simply something she will never share. I am reminded of my propositioning her years before. I am reminded of the laugh I will never forget. We go to a small club. The club features a very old singer, famous for resuming her career in her 80s. The career is a sequence of youthful fame, followed by 50 years of obscurity, and then a return to fame. The next day, she goes home to Canada without calling me. The Canadian police tear up her loft 4 times without finding anything. Then they call her to the police station. They tell her that on the next visit they will find something, whether it is there or not. They tell her she has 1 month to leave Canada permanently. She goes to Goa for a few months. She brings back a lot of beautiful women's clothes. Various substances are sewn into the clothes. This is a while ago. No dogs, no searches. Just get on the plane and go where the plane goes. She moves to Hawaii. She meets a man who is an experienced sailor. They marry. Together they decide to go into the business of deep sea fishing. She buys a large boat. She hires a crew of 6 Hawaiian professional fishermen. The boat goes out for a month at a time and comes back with some tons of fish. The business is a great success. During that time, I meet with her and her husband because I am in Hawaii for a concert performance. After the concert, we go to a restaurant. We talk about the business of deep-sea fishing. I am sitting across the table from her. While we're talking, it occurs to me that the marriage itself is a mystery. Her husband is gentle but roughened, a long-time real seaman. Somehow her husband is part of her secret. I think I know that. But I am no closer to the secret. A man who is the stage director working with me and who is listening to our conversation asks her about her work on the boat. He says, "Are you the cook?" She says, "No, I'm the captain." My friend, the stage director, is stunned. She is still provocatively beautiful and feminine. The boat is caught up in a typhoon storm at night, and it is destroyed. Her husband is at the wheel. She is asleep on the deck below. Her husband pushes the SOS button to radio the boat's location to the Coast Guard and rushes down to wake her. She wakes in the storm. She runs to the wheel room to find her husband. She takes a path different from the one her husband uses, and she misses meeting him. The wheel room is underwater, except for about 1 foot of air at the top. She notices that a window on the opposite side of the wheel room is open a foot or so. She swims to the window and is able to get out. This seems impossibly difficult to me, but I know it is true. The secret deepens, boat sinks. It is the middle of the night. She swims away from the boat looking for help. 2 members of the crew who are on night duty manage to get a lifeboat into the water. They shoot flares to signal any of the other persons on the boat who are in the water. She sees the flares and swims to the lifeboat. Her husband and 4 members of the crew are lost. She and the 2 members of the crew in the lifeboat are rescued by a Coast Guard helicopter 2 days later. She moves to a city in Florida. She cares for her father, who is seriously ill. I have occasion to see her in Miami. She is still beautiful. Age has not changed her. She reminds me of our evening in New York. She says she thinks of it often. As we are talking, she still goes briefly into herself, just long enough to light a cigarette. And then she is back in the present. I am reminded again of the secret. It is something I should never know. It is something I should never think about. It is her and I am me. I treasure her friendship. The next morning she leaves the hotel early. We meet in the lobby and embrace. She laughs again. She is golfing again at a small club. She is teaching in return for her time on the course. She is spending a lot of time and money traveling back and forth to Hawaii. She is trying to persuade the court to make the insurance company pay for the deaths of the 4 crewmen. She seems disconsolate that the insurance company will win the case. She is back in Hawaii now. She lives in a Polynesian-style house on one of the smaller islands. The house is of her design. She is living there now.
A nice story.
Thanks.
Is
You mean the story?
Yeah,
it?
of
Why
course.
make it up?
People make up stories.
Not me.
Every-
Well, sometimes.
Where you get it
From everywhere.
people.
Yeah, they all have. Everybody's got
But
it.
how do you know it's
Why should it all
It
matter?
If you know it's true,
This is in a public.
public place?
that's different.
What's different?
It's just different.
What's public got to do with it?
A lot of people.
So?
A lot of people is different.
Different from what?
From between two people.
How so?
Between two is a secret.
We already said that.
What's the
It's
other?
political.
Let's get back to building.
I like
Our
building.
building?
The ones that line up.
Stone
The
walls.
stone wall.
Everywhere.
Everywhere
You
I've
do
been.
the eye
It's the
thing.
way you can tell.
Concrete's not
An
stone.
arrangement of
But
stone.
there's a skeleton.
Well, most of the
You need a
Could be
skeleton.
other.
How, for example?
Poured in a phrase.
Those all line up.
like the other.
And the stone.
You asked that before.
What's the other?
Always like
How do you
I
know?
read the
And the
book.
books say what?
from the beginning.
Beginning of what?
From the beginning of time.
And that is
Say 10,000 years.
all I know.
Better than all
Tell me
line up.
what?
the ziggurat.
Never heard of all.
Giza pyramid.
You mean the big
A
one?
few
They
others.
buried people.
There's no
So what's
there.
inside?
Some tunnels and rooms.
That's all.
Some marking.
Where's the body?
Bodies in
So what's it?
It's a big
a model
model.
of what?
Egypt on earth.
Anything
The
else?
whole world.
Yeah.
And the universe.
How they know all that
We
stuff.
think we know.
You've got to be
No,
kidding.
it's in the books.
Twins.
Nobody knows.
Roughly.
Baby, 6,000.
How did they do?
Loyalty.
To what?
To each other.
Maybe other stuff.
Whips and
Or something like that.
You can't get people to do perfect work unless they want to.
Your opinion.
It's gotta be.
So what did they do?
Mr. Taylor.
He's an expert.
Yeah, but he's dead.
What he's
It
saying.
was to make a
The measure of
6,000 years ago.
Among other
what
things.
other thing?
Well, the universe.
Oh, gee.
That's what the word Giza.
Giza means
a
Jesus.
different land.
Boy, this could cause some problems.
And Petrie said,
Another
He said
expert.
we're talking about
I don't even want to hear this.
Measurements to within.
This better be good.
1,000
of a mile.
Of an inch.
There's more, I bet.
And the platform does not
foundation.
7/8 of an inch of dead
That's because of subside.
sinking.
Yeah,
How big is the
It's
building?
600 million.
that's a
It's
building.
one of the biggest.
At 6,000 years ago.
Give or take a few thousand.
How do we know this?
In years of careful measure.
Precision instrument.
Made for the job.
How did they do?
No one
So
knows.
how big are the
Tons of granite and
Of
limestone.
how many tons?
Some over 7.
So how is the accuracy?
Can't put a razor between
the
them.
They just wanted to.
Wanted
It
to.
has to be that way.
Is this still going on?
Our job with our bodies is to move rocks.
Who said that?
Friend of mine.
So what does he?
Pretty much everything.
Why were they doing it?
Nobody knows.
You got any complaints?
Sometimes we go crazy.
You mean in other places?
Like in Asia.
What happened there?
Just kept by.
Like a disease.
Must be the
What
water.
does it look
Chaos of big rock
It's not
piles.
so
But they got
a
over.
few hundred years?
Now they're back at
They're
it.
fixing them.
Trying to make them look new.
Crazy.
6,000 years ago.
No, just about 1,000.
We must have forgot something.
It would appear that way.
We still do it anyway.
Everywhere.
So how about
That's
now?
where I live.
Come to think
I
of it.
think of it all the
So
time.
some people got
And some people don't.
Oh boy.
He asks me to play the piano in a jazz quartet. The quartet plays in local roadhouses and in clubs for the men in the nearby army camp. We're the only club band available in the area, so we work regularly. We are in the army together. He plays drums in the army band. I play clarinet or cymbals when the band is marching. I play bassoon when the band is sitting down. I play piano in the army dance band. I am terrible at everything, but so is the band, so it hardly matters. We become good friends, I suppose because we come from the same social class. We have relatives from villages in the mountains of western Tennessee. The relatives now live in Detroit to escape from dreary poverty on used-up tobacco farms and from the ever-encroaching Tennessee Valley Authority. We probably sound alike in our speech. We probably seem alike to the rest of the army band, which is African-American in the majority. The great difference between us, which is certainly obvious to me and must be obvious to anyone who cares, is that he has substantial financial resources. He has a new car. He and his wife live in a nice house off post. He dresses well and he behaves with utter discretion. We are very different. One day he asked me if he can tell me an important secret. A secret that I must keep from his wife and from my wife and from everybody else. We go to his house. His wife is away. He reveals to me that he is known in the way men are known in cities all over the United States as a serious poker player. He is called whenever generals and other high officers get together and there is a lot of money on the table. The secret is that he has promised his wife that he no longer gambles because she has come to fear for his safety. He cheats. He cheats with the cards. That is why he has more money than I have at the same army pay scale. He tells his wife that he has the extra money because of playing in the jazz quartet after hours. It's hard to imagine she believes him. I play in the quartet too, and she and my wife are friends, but apparently she believes him. Or she simply knows she can't stop him. He gives me a few illustrations of his skill with cards. He shuffles, I cut the deck. He deals me 4 aces. He shows me how the special decks he uses are marked and how they are contoured. I can't feel the contours until he points the fact out to me. He must practice hundreds of hours with these decks before he has the courage to use them. Where does he do this? He explains that when the deal comes to him, he switches decks. He can pretty much determine who has the best hand. This is dangerous business. If anything happens to him, I am to get his wife out of town as quickly as possible. He explains that he rarely wins extravagantly himself, but that he has an accomplice, a young black man who he tells everybody in the local poker world is from a relatively wealthy family and plays well and can afford the high-stakes game. Usually the young black man takes most of the money in the room. They split the proceeds afterward. I understand his discretion. He knows perfectly when to win, when to lose, and when one of the generals is to go home happy. This is the last we speak of this matter for some months. A secret is a secret. It doesn't need to be discussed. A few months later, the larger unit of which the band is a part takes part in a war game in the bayous of Louisiana. The band is assigned guard duties all over the area of the war games. One night he comes to my tent and tells me he and the young black man have been called to a very big stakes poker game. The game will involve visiting officers from other parts of the army. This is an exceptionally dangerous situation. There are no towns for miles around. If he is caught cheating, he could simply disappear into the bayou. He makes an excuse for bringing me. The excuse is that we are on duty together and the duties are assigned in pairs. I am not to play. I am to sit near the entrance to the tent, minding my business. Just another soldier in the middle of the night. If anything goes wrong, I am to run to the nearest military police area and bring help. That is, I am to bring the military police to have him arrested and to prevent the alternative, which is to prevent him from being killed by men with virtually unlimited power. I suggest that he might opt out of this game on some excuse, but that is not the way poker players think about things. Fortunately, the game goes uneventfully. The young black man takes away a lot of money. The generals curse their luck. I pay close attention to the progress of the game and think about the most direct route to the military police area. Afterwards, I go back to my tent. I don't sleep for the rest of the night. For the duration of the war games, 6 weeks, his wife and my wife go back to our homes in Michigan. After the war games, we are given a 2-week leave. He and I drive his car to Michigan to pick up our wives. On the way, somewhere in Arkansas, we come to a very long and gradual curve to our left. The curve must be a mile long. The road has no shoulders. On both sides, it simply pitches about 12 feet into a swamp. Coming towards us on the curve is another car. Very gradually it moves into our lane. Apparently the other driver is asleep. The strategy of changing lanes is out of the question. If the other driver wakes up and reacts automatically to being in the wrong lane, the result is a head-on collision. We slow down, but the other car keeps coming at a high speed. My friend makes a decision. He says quietly, "Hang on." He slams the brakes into a full skid and pulls the steering wheel sharply to the right. At the last possible moment, the driver in the other car awakens and does exactly the same maneuver. The two cars are skidding sideways towards each other at a very high speed. Within a few yards of collision, my friend and the other driver both pull sharply to the left. The Two cars do a kind of do-si-do counterclockwise and are both in their own lanes and well past each other. We stop. The car moves about 200 yards down the road and stops. The driver gets out of the car and looks at us for a minute or so. He gets back in his car and drives away. My friend says, "Can you drive for a while?" We don't speak for the next hour. I realize while driving that his maneuver has another meaning. Perhaps this is circumstantial, but it could be instinctively purposeful. The maneuver puts him directly between me and the collision. If it is purposeful, it is an inexplicably courageous thing to do on his part. The rest of the trip goes as planned. We never speak of the near accident again. At this point, I should say that in his spare time with the Army and the quartet, my friend begins to take flying lessons at a small airport near the base. I go with him a few times to watch him take off and land. Our Army duties end. I don't see him for another 13 years. My picture appears in a newspaper when I take a new job in California. He calls me on the telephone and we meet for dinner in San Francisco. He seems virtually unchanged. He is well dressed as usual. He tells me that he is a pilot for a major airline. He flies between the United States and various cities in Asia. We talk about getting together, but of course I know this is not going to happen. Years pass. On a flight back to the United States from Europe, I hear my friend's name announced as captain, and I hear his voice telling the passengers that everything is going to be okay. I ask the flight attendant if she will speak to the captain and ask him if he remembers a person by my name. About 4 hours later, he touches me on the shoulder and invites me to go back to the galley of the plane for a drink. We both drink a Coca-Cola. He tells me that he is about to retire from flying because of his age. He tells me he is still playing the drums as a hobby. He says that he would like to come to New York occasionally to take lessons from a professional. I say that I know musicians working in jazz. I will arrange for the lessons. It is a warm but short meeting. When the plane lands, I half expect him to be there to talk more about the lessons. But he is not in the waiting area, and I know that I will probably never see him again. He is certainly retired by now. Probably playing cards with a few friends occasionally. But in those next few years, before his retirement, whenever I leave the United States, I always hope that he is the pilot. If anything goes wrong, I want to be in good hands.
Poker is rare.
In what way?
The deal goes
You mean
clockwise.
passing the
Yeah,
time?
the dealing goes clockwise.
How's that different?
In all other
You
games,
mean card
All
games?
things people play.
You mean sports?
especially sports.
So what's the
They go
difference?
counterclockwise.
For example,
No exception.
None
Baseball, for
Running the base.
in the defensive line.
that's a hard one.
Just pay attention.
swinging the bat.
Some bet left hand.
Too many.
They're
Still
switching,
counterclockwise.
Another one.
Well, figure skating.
What about
but they're
jumps?
back.
Name another
all
one.
kinds of skating?
The rink
Ice
skate.
hockey.
Not sure about
Could
that.
it be otherwise?
Could be exception.
Be a great
They could be
one.
That's why they're the great ones.
Another.
Racing, obviously.
The horses, the dogs.
Don't forget dressage.
Try to mix it up
Not success.
The horses don't care.
You wouldn't think
But we
so.
can't know.
till they start a talk.
And whatever else.
Whatever racing.
Watch the Olympics.
And the marathons.
I'll check that one out.
And the high.
Yeah, if you watch closely.
Name another one.
Football, I think.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, the exceptions are hard.
There's the short flat to the right.
But there's left hand.
Hard to defend.
Tennis and ping
I'll
pong.
check that one out.
Think like a player.
But there's always left-handed.
Forward.
What about
In
soccer?
the details.
I don't watch much.
Because you're American.
Pool and billiards.
I'll give you
But
that
it's
one.
arguable.
Being right
There's
hand.
always that.
Yeah, that's a big
Pretty
question.
solid.
It's arguable.
Other card games.
For instance, blackjack.
I'll check it out on
So,
TV.
other things.
Well, how about reading?
Got me
And
there.
there's handshaking.
But most of us are
Doesn't
right-handed.
explain.
And the left hand is sinister.
Yeah, that's what it
And
means.
it's thought dirty
I
sometimes.
have a friend
And I'll bet this is in
at a
India.
very big party.
Reached out with his left
The
hand.
conversation all stopped.
I can almost see
Things
it.
froze.
It just stopped.
Froze like a freeze frame.
Must be hard to leave.
Stay out of here.
You drink
Eat
with your
with
right.
your left.
Emily Post say that.
Emily, whoever.
There's reading
We
again.
didn't then.
There's a problem.
Crawl
It's
on
hard
TV.
to make it go from left to
It's
right.
designed that way.
To conform to read.
Give me another.
Just look over your
Yes, say
shoulder.
what you
Stirring the soup.
It must go both
Or
ways.
blowing the candles
I'll
out.
pay some
It might be
attention.
an exception.
Well, there's
The
dry.
left turn is marked
The
special.
right turn
Always
scary.
seems harder.
Never thought of that.
I think it's
You
deep.
mean cross
The
brain
right
stuff?
brain is
The
musical.
left brain is
The
visual.
left brain
You
is
can't
logical.
turn it
The
off.
so-called visual mode is illogical.
Yeah, I read
That
that.
guy knew
And
something.
he couldn't see.
Chicken and egg
You
problem.
think that we just taught ourselves
Why would we do
That's what
that?
I'm wondering.
got to be one way?
Or not?
That makes no sense.
Anthropologically.
Why would it matter?
Well, that's a question.
Maybe it's symmetry.
Sure.
That would be boring.
It's sure boring.
Comes down to the sun.
And which way are you facing?
Which way's the way?
So maybe it's
You
true.
mean we started in
This
Africa?
gives me a
I
headache.
know what you mean.
Maybe Atlantic.
Man, be serious.
Plato was Syrian.
Plus, he was
He
Greek.
got it all second.
From the Egyptians.
Yeah, they figured it out.
They're ambidextrous.
They married their sister.
Just one that we know.
How do you know?
I read books.
What did they do with it?
Erased him entirely.
So the problem is class.
Yeah, they run clockwise.
That'll do it.
Otherwise, it'd be different.
Right.
We could make clocks run back.
You think that would solve it?
Well,
Don't look at the clock.
Look at the mirror.
that's about age.
So what is it?
Right.
Turning the knob.
That's an exception.
Right.
If you can see that.
And that's about aging.
Piano playing.
Let's drop the subject.
I was just asking.
Asking spoils everything.
You bet it does. We play in an army band together, and we play in the jazz quartet together. Yes, it's the same army, the same jazz quartet, the same me, a different friend. The past gets all mixed up. Where am I? Oh, yeah, the jazz quartet. I am terrible at jazz, but I am the only white piano player around. This is Texas, 1955. The bass player in the quartet is black. Occasionally, there are ominous remarks at the bar between sets, so the bass player leaves early during the last set, and we play the last tune longer than usual, so that he is well on the way home before we stop. I read in the barracks when the band has nothing scheduled. My reading is conspicuous, at least to me, because nobody else reads. So maybe for that reason we become friends. I carry Joyce around with me, like one of the other men carries the Bible. My friend isn't interested in Joyce. His deep interest is Joseph Conrad. He is a remarkably diffident person. He keeps his personal interests to himself. Together we keep the company of a third person, a saxophone player, who unintentionally a few years later changes my friend's life. There's not much to be said about being in a second-rate army band. All of the covert intelligence operations on any army base are funded through the budget for the band. So there's not much money left for the band. The instruments sound like they are bought at a pawn shop. Even if anyone plays well, the sound is still bad. Nobody cares. If you don't have anything else planned for your life, the army band is a career, especially after a few years of getting shot at. It seems only fair. The band meets the general's helicopter at 6 in the morning and plays a symbolic tune. You march around a drill field in the late afternoon for some kind of review when the general is on post. You play for an occasional civic ceremony in some nearby town where they need music, and the army is happy to provide the band for public relations purposes. For a few hours a week, the band rehearses, simply for something to do. Otherwise, you sit around the barracks and listen to jazz records or read. My friend and his barracks roommate listen mainly to the West Coast style of jazz. I don't like that kind of jazz, but I think it influences their playing styles. My friend plays the clarinet, which I always think is a strange instrument for that style of jazz, but he plays it well. I am self-taught on the clarinet, so I rarely play it in the army band. On one occasion, playing in some town nearby, I am assigned the clarinet, which puts me next to my friend. During some tune we are playing, my friend says to me, "Do you think you could sit this one out?" I am terribly out of tune. On the way back to the post, the army bus runs into a car and everybody is thrown forward dramatically. We are sitting together. In spite of my having to sit one out, we are good friends. If I hit my mouth on the iron rail on the seat in front of me, it would be no great loss to music. But I'm sure it would be a disaster for me as a person, because the army would fix my teeth, and that would ruin my life. You can't go through life with army teeth. Definitely it would be a disaster for my friend. You can't be a good clarinetist on army teeth. His embouchure would be destroyed. Fortunately, we come out with only bad bruises on the nose and forehead. I live off post with my family. Occasionally, my friend visits with a matchbox full of marijuana, and he and my wife and I spend the night talking about literature and music. After the army, my friend moves to New York to get a PhD in literature at Columbia University, specializing in Joseph Conrad. I move back to Michigan, where I find work in music. My friend is successful at Columbia. He gets a teaching fellowship at UCLA to sustain him while he writes his thesis on Conrad. He moves to Los Angeles. His former barracks friend, now playing jazz clubs in LA, takes him to the thoroughbred races at Santa Anita Park. That is the end of Joseph Conrad as a main subject of interest. He becomes a habitual and eventually a professional gambler with a usable amount of money inherited in the death of his aunt. He says to me sometime later, "It is a destiny." I think he reads too much Conrad. I think he will turn back eventually, but that is not the case. Every gambler has a system. You know this if you know a gambler. Most systems are flawed and confirm the belief among some gamblers and among most people who know gamblers that the real thrill in gambling is to lose. It is a test of character, as in war. But occasionally a system works. The system works if the gambler is intelligent and reasonable. My friend is intelligent and reasonable. His life consists in rising every morning to go out to buy the racing form. He studies racing results all day for every horse and every track in the U.S. He memorizes those facts and what they suggest. Personally, I think teaching Conrad is easier, but I am not a gambler. He moves back to New York. While he is in New York, his friend and mine, the saxophone player, suffers a terrible loss. At one of his club engagements, the saxophone player meets a woman who is the first woman for whom he has any affection. Her name is Billy. He takes her home after the engagement and sees her a few times afterwards. They never have sexual intercourse. Her excuse is a variety of feminine reasons. But for the saxophone player, it is love at first sight. One night, he gets a call from the Los Angeles police. The policeman says they have in custody a man who is charged with philandering, possibly prostitution, and various other charges of the 1 month in the city jail variety. The man tells the police that our friend will put up the bail money. The policeman says the man's name is William. Our friend says he knows no man named William. The policeman says that the man tells the police that our friend will know him as Billy. Our friend goes to the jail and puts up the bail, but he is damaged forever. He and Billy never see each other again. I think this event affects my friend greatly. He and our common friend, the saxophone player, unlike many men, have casual and dignified relationships with women. Billy William may seem funny, but it is not funny. But life goes on the way it does. Gradually, my friend perfects a system for betting on the horses that works. If I understand the system correctly, he finds one race every couple of weeks where the odds on one horse are high enough to make the bet worthwhile, but do not predict to a non-specialist that the horse will win. My friend goes to the track for that race. He wagers a rather large amount of money, $1,000 or $2,000. It is important to understand that with this system, and with a large amount of money bet, it is important to go to a big track where the bet pool is large. At Aqueduct, the racetrack just outside of Manhattan, where the amount of money bet in the parimutuel system is very large. A couple of $1,000 will not upset the favorable odds unless those odds are changed by a large amount of money bet on a certain horse. The tote board represents a consensus among bettors. The casual bettor is strongly influenced by the tote board, so it is important for the professional to bet as late as possible. The essence of the system is to bet as late as possible. In an ideal situation, the big bettor is the last person to bet before the gates open and the betting windows close. At Aqueduct, there are special windows for the big money bettors. These are the $100 windows. They are manned by persons of great experience in reading at a glance a spread of $100 bills. So you simply show the spread that amounts to, say, $1,000 and speak 2 words, say, number 4. You do this for as many spreads as you intend to bet, and you get the tickets. I never observed this, of course, but my friend tells me that near the $100 windows, there are rather a lot of men, usually, milling around and waiting to be, hopefully, the last person to bet before the gates open and the betting windows close. Naturally, these people get to know each other casually and talk about betting as a way of life. One of the things that concerns and puzzles them the most is the tendency occasionally to be influenced by the tote board and to say the wrong number when the person at the window reads the spread. You believe number 4 is going to win and that you are going to make a large amount of money. But when you show the spread, you say number 6. You have just lost a large amount of money, and there is no changing your mind. This is apparently an almost universal problem among professional bettors. Nobody knows the reason. It happens only once in a while. You can't explain it to yourself, but in general, you make money if you are intelligent and well-informed and betting for a living. I ask my friend if he is tempted to stay around the track and make a couple of $10 bets for fun, after he has won, say, $8,000. He says, "No, that's gambling. I'm not a gambler." He is living in New York on the Upper East Side with an airline flight attendant. They are, to all appearances, I believe, practically married. One day she comes home and tells him that she is regularly having sex with a pilot during flights to and from Europe. To me, as a frequent flyer, this is unnerving news. But I don't know much about airlines. He tells me later that he is tired of living in New York anyway. He tells me that he is tired of driving around the block for an hour or so every night looking for a new parking space. Parking in New York is terrible. They make it that way. He moves to Berkeley, California, where he has friends. The serious problem about the move is that betting at Bay Meadows, north of Berkeley, is different from betting at Aqueduct, in that there isn't very much money bet on any one race. It's a small track. Betting $1,000 at Bay Meadows, even at the last moment, means that you are effectively betting against yourself. The track takes 20% off the top for operating expenses, and your $1,000 is a very large share of the pool. My friend's standard of living suffers. The system still works, but there is just not enough money involved to make a good living. He economizes. He lives in a small apartment. He drives an old car. He studies the racing form every morning. He cooks a veal chop every night for dinner. He drinks a quart of milk every day against my advice and suffers painful arthritis in his hands, which affects his clarinet playing. He goes to parties among a widening variety of friends. He vacations in summer in the family summer home in Vermont. He holds his charm even to this day. Probably he is still reading Conrad. Probably he is still betting. Certainly he would say he is happy, but it's not like coming home with $8,000 in your pocket, I bet.
Rub away your hands.
Sometimes in the
So
morning,
what do you
Have
do?
a bell,
sometimes a whole
Sometimes.
I guess you
if
can't
your
brag.
hands are
Then
trembling,
what do you do?
wait till it's
Do you
done.
drink a lot?
No, not a lot.
What's not a
Couple of shots.
Go with the valley.
More or
about
less.
when
About first thing.
First thing in the morning.
What's the difference?
What's the difference?
between 3 in the
Or
morning
10 in the
And 3
morning.
in the
A
afternoon.
lot comes to
The
drinking.
doctor said.
Boy, you are something.
Would you do sleep at night?
Okay, forget drinking.
That's really.
Then what?
Then it goes away.
How long has
Last
this
few
been?
years or so.
Because you drink.
Just getting old.
Is that an excuse?
Comes with
Do you get scared?
Scared about the
the
trembling?
whole thing.
Not that I know of.
That's what they all say.
That's because it's
What
true.
else is
Things
there?
unfit.
You're making this hard.
Let's go back to some other.
So what about
I'm
thinking?
not scared of that either.
What do you think about
People,
an apology?
Tell me what.
you sure you want
I've
this?
known some suffering.
This isn't suffering.
It's always a suffering.
God.
Well, go ahead and tell her.
We stole some watermelon.
Not for a living.
Fun of it.
You ever get caught?
No, but almost.
Must have been fun.
Yeah, I hope she's okay.
Did her father
He
approve?
didn't like
What could have been wrong?
Well, probably I talked different.
That's a good reason.
they newcomer.
bird of a generation.
It takes a while to wear in.
It was that simple.
Around in the hay.
No, just lay down in the
You were just kids.
I liked her hair.
Lying down in the
Yeah,
field.
it was yellow.
Blondes have more fun.
like the second one.
This in the field.
In her bedroom.
How'd you get up there?
She need the rain pie.
Must have been noisy.
Yeah, her father woke up.
How'd you get out?
Just jumped out the window.
You could have broken a leg.
I was in a hurry.
Were they all like
The next one was years
Where did
later.
it happen?
Front seat of my car.
You disappointed her.
I said we just had to
What
stop.
was the excuse?
I decided.
You mean no more girls?
That's it
Did
exactly.
she take it hard?
Briefly, then she got married.
You ever see her afterward?
No, but I heard
A neighborhood talk.
She got to be friends with my
that
mother.
was nice of her.
She was a nice person.
How long did this last?
You mean no more girls?
It does seem extreme.
6 years or more.
That's simplification.
I was preoccupied.
Then I bet you got a moving.
Among other
You disappointed her.
I wasn't
It
preoccupied.
didn't stop there.
I'm afraid not.
How many in all?
I wouldn't count.
All
I
disappointed.
think that's true.
Inadequacy.
It's more than that.
So this is sort of an apology.
Time to get rid of
So let me guess.
You've probably got
it. You couldn't commit.
That's probably close.
So you were afraid.
Yeah, I think that's probably the answer.
It brings her down the house.
and everything's crashing.
That's what it takes.
And hearts are broken.
You're just not up to it.
And lives are destroyed.
So you feel like a coward.
Yeah, whenever I think
Should we make an
how
announcement?
would you put
anyone who gives
it?
this
Who feels disappointed?
Call me collect.
Just leave a message.
The old man lives in concrete.
Just remember.
doesn't have to be that heavy.
Put it up in times.
CNN.
Along with the baseball
The
score,
problems of war.
We'll get on 60 Minutes.
I'd have to get a new suit.
You've got some problems.
You don't know the half of it.
Yeah. The time is 3:47 a.m. on Wednesday, November 12, 1986. I am sleeping in the living room of a cottage at the American Academy of Rome. I am sleeping on the living room couch. I am sleeping on the couch because the producers of the opera we are performing in Rome are short of money. They arranged for me to sleep at the American Academy to save money. The apartment at the American Academy has 2 bedrooms but no heat. 2 people from the opera ensemble are sleeping in the bedrooms. They are sleeping in the bedrooms because the hotel the producers provide is a miserable wreck. The hotel is typical in Rome at that time. One room has no glass in the windows, and so it is too cold to live in. The other room has a shower with no stall, so that when the occupant takes a shower, there is water all over the hotel room floor. We can't change hotels because the producers are friends of mine, and I know that they have very little money. Everybody else in the ensemble seems to have a room that is at least usable. So I invite the 2 people with the bedrooms to share my accommodations at the American Academy. At 3:47 a.m., something, a person, or this is hard to believe, an animal, begins pulling the covers off of my bed from the foot of the bed. I grab the covers from my chest and begin pulling to keep them on me. There is a short but strenuous tug of war, and then it ends. I know the time exactly, because there is a floor lamp next to my head, and I immediately turn it on and look at my watch. Somehow the time seems important to remember. The tug of war over the covers wakes me completely, because when I turn on the light, there is nobody in the room. Unlikely as it seems, I think first it is a kind of prank played by my 2 companions. I go to the 2 bedrooms to look in on my companions, and they are both fast asleep. I spend a few minutes searching the apartment for some kind of animal that might be responsible, never believing that it could be an animal, and then I get up and get dressed and sit at the kitchen table having a drink, smoking a cigarette and puzzling over the event. After an hour or so, I go back to bed. The next 5 nights after rehearsals and then performances, my 2 friends and I huddle in our overcoats in the cold apartment, having a drink and joking about the tug of war. I tell them about it in detail more than once, stressing the mysterious quality of the event. The day after the last performance, I come back to New York. I arrive at about 7 p.m. I am home only a few minutes when the phone rings. and the wife of a very dear and longtime friend calls to say that her husband, my friend, is dead. As a victim of death, he is very young, about 40 years old. She tells me briefly about his death. The cause is cancer. He confronts cancer in a way typical for him. Very bravely, curiously, she mentions the time of his death. I wake in the middle of the night to an amazing thought. The coincidence of the time of his death in Arizona and the mysterious tug of war in Rome. I call her the next day. We go over the details of his death. He learns of his very advanced and incurable cancer even as they are moving into a new house. She says the house has a beautiful backyard with a view of the sky. My friend decides simply to sleep on a mat in the backyard for the last 2 weeks of his life. He says he enjoys the night view of the sky. His wife is with him the whole time. I confirm with her then the exact time of his death. She tells me that she feels the exact time of his death is very important. She writes it down. I calculate the time difference between the two places, Rome and Arizona. The coincidence between the time of his death in Arizona and the time of the business of the blankets being pulled from my bed in Rome is exact to the minute. I can't explain this to myself in any way. I should say that maybe 6 weeks before his death he calls me and says he would like to visit me in New York. I make the excuse that I am preparing for the performances in Rome and suggest that he put off the visit until I get back. He says very casually, "I'll probably be dead by then." I think this is some sort of joking remark provoked by my asking him to put off the visit, and we continue talking about the most trivial things for almost an hour. The telephone call is important. For many years he calls me every few weeks. I always enjoy the calls. He has that peculiar gift, rare in most people, to call when I most need to talk to someone. Even though he is 16 years younger than I am, and we spend many years apart, I consider him to be one of my closest friends. I think our friendship is, in an unusual way, a telephone friendship. We meet when he comes to my home one evening late after my work. I work until 9 p.m. every night. For a few weeks before we meet, my wife tells me that a very young man, a teenager, appears at the door in the early evening, dressed in an elegant black suit with a shirt and tie, wearing a cashmere overcoat, with a white scarf draped over one arm. He asks to see me. She tells him that I am not at home and asks him to wait. He always replies, "I'll come back." Finally, then he comes when I am at home. He is dressed exactly as my wife describes him. We talk for quite a while. He is producing a radio program on an independent station in Detroit. He knows my music. He asks me to help him get tapes of the most contemporary music to play on his program. We begin a long friendship, and I realize almost immediately that he is a very unusual and peculiar person. These are the days of a very active social and artistic life, with late parties almost every night at my house or at a friend's house nearby. Many times I notice that with at least 10 people in a room talking and drinking, when my friend walks in, all conversation stops for a minute. It is as if people are momentarily afraid. Everybody comes to know him as my friend, and he is always welcome. But there is always, too, that peculiar moment of his entrance. He makes life an adventure for himself. He tells me that he never takes the same route from where he lives some 30 miles away to visit me. He gets involved with the music scene in Detroit where Motown rules, and tries to promote the careers of 2 young black women who are singing on Motown records anonymously and probably not getting paid. Motown is getting it for nothing, so he can't make any inroads there, and so he begins producing records independently. In Detroit, this is a dangerous business, especially for a young white man, and so he starts carrying a gun. At a drive-in on 8 Mile Road, 2 black kids come to the car. What's a white boy like you doing with those two black girls in the car? My friend takes out his gun and says, we think we will get a hamburger and some French fries. Well, do enjoy those fries. And the business is dangerous too, in the matter of trying to get into the independently recorded record business. Format radio so pervasive now, where every tune is scheduled and timed to the second, with the DJ filling the time between the very end of the singing on one tune until the moment of the beginning of the singing on the next, has arrived in Detroit in force, literally in force. If the DJ substitutes an independently produced tune for one of the tunes paid for in the format, he gets a call of warning from one of the listeners. He gets a threat. This is the music business in Detroit. The prime time DJ is 6 to 10 p.m. at the only black music station in Detroit unwisely decides to get into the independent recording game himself. He starts substituting tunes in which he and my friend have an investment for the tunes in the format. After a couple of warnings, the DJ comes home to find his apartment totally destroyed. But the DJ is young and reckless. If a tune is a hit, it sells thousands of those 45s at 99 cents each in the mom and pop record stores all around Detroit. You can make a small fortune in a couple of months, but few do it because of the danger. Finally, the DJ gets the ultimate warning by telephone one night when he is on the air. He asks the engineer to cue up the next record. I have to go to the toilet. He gets in his car and drives to his mother's house in Pittsburgh. He calls my friend. Take anything you want from the apartment. Wisdom prevails. My friend says to me, only a crazy man would go to that apartment. My friend moves to Los Angeles to find a different kind of action, and that's when the phone calls begin. He takes any kind of job that is different. He helps to organize orgy parties where all kinds of celebrities attend. He apprentices with a legendary door-to-door salesman in aluminum siding. Get the wife to sign the contract in the afternoon, come back in the evening before the husband gets home, sit in the husband's chair, and present the husband with a done deal, no way out. He works in boiler rooms, selling diamonds as tax shelters to people in remote places who don't know the value of a diamond but have lots of money. He says old ranchers are good marks. They keep their money under the mattress. I learn about tax shelters. And every few weeks I get a call with all of the details and a droll humor. And then selling diamonds as tax shelters becomes a private full-time business for him. He strikes out on his own. He is good at it. He has immediate success. He makes a lot of money. He has a house in an expensive street with movie stars as neighbors. I visit once. Except for the gaudily expensive furniture, the house is empty. The refrigerator is empty. He sleeps on a mattress on one of the floors of one of the bedrooms. We go to an expensive restaurant, and I go home. In person, the drollery is gone. There is a strange sadness about the expensive home he lives alone. He lives like a ghost in his own life. I feel that he needs the telephone in order to be complete. By the time I am hard to get in touch with because I have no phone. He visits me and seems relaxed in my relative poverty. He makes me laugh. How do you close a deal on aluminum siding? Make sure you sit in the husband's chair. I move to New York and the phone calls become almost regular. Problems develop. A serious criminal is jealous of my friend's success in selling diamonds. There are warnings. A meeting is demanded. My friend's girlfriend at that time meets the two enforcers in the coffee shop on the ground floor of his office building. As instructed, she invites them to a meeting in my friend's office. The enforcers enter the office where they meet my friend with a gun in his hand, ready for use. The enforcers leave without speaking. The next day, all of the windows in his office are blown out by gunfire. My friend goes into the real estate business in Phoenix, Arizona. He sends me a brochure about a city he is developing near Phoenix. Gilbert is the name of the development. In a note he says, if this projection works out, by the year 2000, this will be Planet Gilbert. My friend moves to New York and begins writing a puzzling but amazing book about life. I won't speak about the book. It is too personal. In New York, he visits very rarely, very discreetly. I sense in my wife the same moment of fear that I remember from years before. He is too formal to the point of stiffness. He is too overdressed to be casual. It is as if we have nothing to talk about. I begin to understand the challenge in being around him. He isn't at home in New York. He is totally alone, but without the consolation of the telephone. He moves back to Phoenix, where he hopes the climate for selling diamonds over the telephone will be better because he is unknown there. My wife and I visit once. He has found a woman who truly loves him. They live in a very modern house, gaudy as usual, but somehow more lighthearted. We are taken on a long, leisurely, almost meditative nighttime drive around Phoenix, which is a beautiful city for exactly that kind of drive. My wife and I leave the next day and return to New York. The telephone calls become more frequent. Every call lasts a long time, but it is impossible to remember at all what we talked about. There is the feeling of simply being in touch with each other. The only conversation I remember comes from my complaining about the difficulties of having my work in music produced. He says, "But you have made an ideal life. You can do anything you want to do, and nobody can hurt you." This is an important lesson for me. I never complain again, even to myself. There are no more incidents recounted in the phone calls than I can remember. We simply talk for a long time on the phone every few weeks. I never call him. He calls me. Finally, there is the phone call about his wanting to visit me in New York and my innocent refusal. He dies. Except for my call to his widow the next day to confirm the coincidence of his death with my experience of the visitor in the night in Rome, I am not in touch with his widow. It seems proper that our relationship should remain untouched and uncontaminated by commonplace ideas. In the way I think of our long friendship now, he calls and I don't answer. So he comes to see me to say goodbye, with humor as usual, in a way that is beyond the realm of our understanding. I believe he wants to call me in Rome, but he can't.
Probably I've said it all.
A lot of stuff in
Well,
there
it's my
that's
style.
all
You said
Everything, something I've
Too
said
many
many
So
times.
what's this deal? Last
I
time
can't
Okay,
tell but
then
maybe
we've
Pretty
done.
much.
we did talk in strange.
That does get
we
your
did so
attention.
I think they're better
People
when
you
you
hung
that
around
I
with.
we did lives live
Just
in.
secret
can't tell
parts.
by looking at
Everyone's
it.
got one, I
We did
think.
a building. They always lie,
We did
don't they?
I think it's a
We
big
did
question.
apologies to
I still feel bad about
It's all so
They don't seem
ordinary.
ordinary
Sure.
to
They're all gamblers.
gamblers are
And
interesting.
they're
That's a big deal with
Yeah.
but their name left.
I don't do
What's
celebrity.
wrong with celebrities?
Our minds are made
Because they are a
Make up a
celebrity.
new idea about someone in
Be
government.
serious.
How about mystery?
Where do I start?
Just start with something
That's
today.
I've already done. What did you eat today?
We've heard it.
Just the high point.
You'll never
We'll
believe
try.
We
this.
just want something new.
You'll never believe it.
Sure.
I saw a flying carpet.
I'm not going to believe
I
this.
saw a flying carpet, the one you read about in stories from the Middle East, the old one.
You mean like 1,001 Nights? I don't know. I haven't read it. I just know about the flying
Where
carpet.
did you see
This
it?
better be
in the
good.
bedroom.
A couple of years ago, my wife and I went to Turkey on a vacation. I couldn't believe we were doing it. We saw a lot of wonderful things I didn't imagine existed. I was really happy.
While we were there, the guide took us to a rug store. It's part of the
They've
tour.
been making rugs there for thousands of years.
It's just like in the jokes about the Turkish rug salesman. They're really selling. You get served coffee and something to eat. Then they start showing the rugs. They show you hundreds of rugs. It happens in a large room with polished floors. The potential customers sit on a ledge that runs around three sides.
The
of the
salesman
room.
stands there talking. A couple of guys pull rolled up rugs off the pile. Then they throw them in a certain way. The rugs unroll on the floor in front of you. One rug on top of another. It happens so fast, you couldn't make a decision if
Unless you
wanted
don't
to.
worry about money like you're
I
buying a
realize there are things I don't know. I know my wife is hooked. I know we're going to buy a Turkish
Are you
rug.
part of
I
the
don't even
decision?
want to be. This is fun for her. Whatever she decides, we can afford it. I like that part. We can afford it. That's important.
So where are you while this is
I'm
happening?
out on the balcony, drinking an
We
apple
don't
tea.
have apple tea here. I know. It's too bad. Apple tea is delicious. It probably
After a
goes
while,
with the
she
rug.
comes out and says, we bought a rug. I say, that's wonderful. I give her a hug. She says, you want to see it? I say, yes, but honestly, I don't care. If she likes it, I like it. I know
We
I would
come
like the rug.
home. A few weeks later, the rug arrives. We put it in the front room, and everybody says, what a beautiful rug. I'm happy, but I'm thinking, so what? I mean, I think it's beautiful. What
A
else?
friend of
can-
ours studies rugs. He says, you made a good choice. He says some technical things. I'm not even listening. I don't care. I'm attached to the rug. It means something to me because my wife
You are not
likes it.
supposed to get attached.
Who said that?
The Buddhist.
Well, I'm not a Buddhist, and what an idea. I think it's stupid. I'm attached to a lot of things. It gives life meaning. In fact, I'm attached to everything.
What about the flying car?
A few weeks ago, my wife moved the rug to the bedroom for a little variety. She put another rug in the front room for some reason. We've got a lot of rugs. My wife likes rugs, but most are just average. They don't mean much to me. The only one that means anything is the one in the bedroom now.
This morning, I woke at about 5 a.m. It's insomnia. It's my whole life.
Then there's a ritual, pill, alcohol, read for an hour, go back to sleep.
Because of the hour, I think. I mean, the possibility of some morning twilight filling the apartment. And possibly a little light getting into the bedroom from a lamp we leave on in the front room. The lighting in the bedroom was probably special for a few minutes.
In that special light, I saw that the pattern of light colors in the middle of the rug seemed to float above the darker colors around the border at a height of about 2 feet.
That is, the middle part of the rug, shaped as if it were another rug, was floating about 2 feet above the rectangle of the big rug. As I could see it, about 2 feet above the floor.
And naturally, I thought, this is some kind of strange illusion caused by just opening my eyes. But I kept looking for a few minutes and nothing changed.
The light-colored rug was floating about 2 feet above the floor. It was magical. I watched for a few minutes and nothing changed. It just stayed there about 2 feet above the floor.
It didn't occur to me until I got up and was making tea and thinking about the amazing thing that I had seen. A flying carpet.
It's no wonder that magical properties are attributed to the flying carpet.
Probably this illusion has been happening in Persia since people started making rugs.
There might even be a secret formula for weaving the colors that makes one rug seem to float above another. I'll never know.
I guess that the rug salesman, even in Turkey, doesn't know. He just knows that one rug is more beautiful than another. But he doesn't know why.
Then what
The
happened?
rest is boring, just ordinary. 2 cups of tea, a little porridge, take a shower.
You dislike ordinariness?
No, it's just troublesome sometimes. A half hour watching some guy confirm that all of the fire extinguishers used in the building are in good order. A little reading to get my mind off the ordinariness. A couple drinks. A trip to the deli to buy some lunch. A little time writing. And here we
So
are.
you drink in the morning?
I thought we covered that.
Medically, it's controversial.
Artistically, it's necessary sometimes.
What's the necessity?
To escape from the ordinariness.
What does that mean?
It means you can't watch a man checking the fire extinguishers, then expect to have any
The
imagination.
ordinariness blocks it, the imagination. It's a serious problem. A lot of people who have to live with their imagination have had to deal with it one way or another.
Maybe the illusion.
Came from the alcohol.
I just woke up.
Illusions are
Until you have
Yeah, right.
So you had an illusion.
and it's not the alcohol.
That's your story.
It was pure.
Yours?
You saw a flying carpet.
Doesn't sound ordinary.
I tried to keep it simple.
So what's the problem?
It's intelligent.
To people that don't
Like
believe.
scientists.
And skeptics in principle.
They want the ordinary.
Always.
Some old Greek said poets and musicians aren't fit for the perfect repose.
Like criminals
Oh, people who have secrets.
of
Who
themselves.
are not trustworthy.
That's the idea.
What happened to the old Greek?
Nothing.
He was as corrupt as the rest
So
of them.
nothing has changed.
Not at all.
Watch the
And
news.
what are you going to
Same thing I've always
Tell stories and
How long
sing.
can you keep on
I've
doing
got nothing else
We've
to
heard
do.
it all.
I
The
think so.
extent of your
If you could call
all
it that.
by
When
yourself?
no one else is around.
These are the sorts of things you think about.
Yeah, more or less.
No wonder we've got problems.
The old man lives in concrete